going to start the actual podcast in like 5 seconds. We're doing something special today. We are doing a banter segment with guests. Usually the banter segments are reserved for No Direction staff, but we had the opportunity to talk to just any Paizo staff we wanted from the way that Aaron worded it. And so we said we wanted to talk to people that we haven't talked to before or haven't talked to in a while. And so he brought us 2 volunteers almost right away, which is exciting for us. So that means that you all are excited to be here. So we're starting with Logan Harper. Logan, hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to, the Pathfinder community and Paizo in general. You are a new customer service rep. So you've been working at Paizo for how long?
3 weeks, going on 3 weeks now.
All right. Well, most people don't get on the show after 3 weeks at Paizo, but that's exciting for you. And exciting for us. So what's it been like for the last 3 weeks?
It's been really great. I personally have been trying to learn as much about both Pathfinder and Starfinder as I can. But it's just been such a great community, such warm, welcoming people, and I'm really excited to be a part of the team.
Excellent. Also on your team, in a much broader sense, we've got returning to the show after a long time because he's been working on Starfinder, and we don't do Starfinder on this show. We do Starfinder on Beyond. Oh, we've missed you too. This is why I like an episode like this, because we get to catch up with even the Starfinder folks. Welcome back to the show, John Compton.
Good to be here. And if you want, I can always come on and just make things up about Pathfinder and make promises in their stead. That's always fun.
I mean, that would be fantastic content for us, so I'm not
that
going to
would be so much fun.
About next time
Wednesday falls, or next time April 1st falls on a Wednesday. That is the episode, John.
Ooh, there we go.
Oh, we can make it fall on a Wednesday.
DeBrick Wookie in chat is saying it's Admiral Compton. I didn't realize you'd been promoted.
Yeah, in fact, in the little bit of pre-show chatter, I had mentioned that the last convention I think that I went to in person was NukeCon in Omaha, and Gary Bush, the venture captain there, had numerous surprises waiting for me, and one of them was an official declaration and certificate from the governor declaring me an admiral of the Nebraska Navy. Which
now you say official.
Wait,
like fully stamped and notarized.
So you could just go onto a boat and say, you like this crew and 3 more crews worth of boats are coming with me?
Yes, and more importantly, I can get onto a boat and realize that on a good day, I might be in a gully or a rain-filled creek. But yes, I believe the bragging rights involved. It's the only state that has is landlocked 3 states long in every direction.
Oh, man.
I mean, it's still an official admiralty if, somehow there's a split in the continent and there's suddenly water there. They're calling you, John. I don't think there are that many Nebraska admirals.
I can't wait for that seismic activity to die down until it's safe enough for me to actually use this, yes.
Hey, it's 2020. Anything can happen this year.
Oh gosh, the return of the inland sea, giant sea turtles. And yeah, I'll take that. That sounds good.
It used to be like red pandas there and elephants with shovel tusks. Those would be cool to see again.
There were red pandas in Nebraska?
Yep, in Nebraska through Appalachia.
I mean, I'm figuring this all sounds very Jurassic Parky, and nothing tied to that ever went wrong. So yeah, rubber stamp that.
But going wrong is what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about the inspirations that we get for our games and gaming-related content.
So where does going wrong come in?
Because if it's going right, you've got no need for an adventure.
Okay. Once it's gone wrong in world. I see. As opposed to, well, this is the latest product. Oh boy, somebody went off the deep end.
Yeah, you want to fight that fairy monkey that's just handing out cotton candy to all the children? No? Well, that's the only threat.
Cavities.
I've been getting into our outlines again.
I mean, you guys have got, I wouldn't be surprised. You guys have written so many adventures. You've got to have cotton candy monkeys somewhere at this point.
It's a fairy monkey. It's just handing out cotton candy.
It is what it does, not what it born as.
No, that's an important factor, though. One of my favorite mistaken identity moments in a game was in college, where I had mentioned like there are a bunch of taxidermied creatures, and like there's a manticore over there, there's a koala, there's a spine monkey, and I was thinking like, this is a monkey that has some spines on it. Whatever, weirdo fantasy creature. All my players are just looking at me aghast, like, oh gosh, that sounds terrible. Like, what do you think it is? It's like a chimpanzee that runs up to you and rips out your spine and kills other people with it. Like, all of you thought that? Yeah. Okay, well, that's what it is now. So if you want cotton candy monkeys, just be aware this could be like a CR12 creature, and it's all on you now.
Yeah, cotton candy is code for membrane.
Ooh.
So we've kind of gone off the rails already, which is fine. This is a banter segment, not an interview. But Logan, I did tell you that we were going to start just talking a little bit about your background as a gamer, because this is the first time that a lot of the people here, including John, have ever met you. So what got you into tabletop gaming? How into tabletop gaming are you?
I actually, like probably many other D&D fans, fell in love with it because of Critical Role. And my partner, he really got into it. We started watching it together, and then he started wanting to run his own campaign. And so I bought him the set with the Curse of Strahd book. And so we started playing a Curse of Strahd campaign with our group of friends. And I instantly fell in love. He really likes to make the whole game immersive and do like, decorations and lighting and sound and everything. So I instantly fell in love with it. And if I could play every day, I would.
Well, I mean, you practically can. You're surrounded by some of the best gamers in the world over at Paizo.
That's true.
So then where does you working for Paizo come in?
So I got really lucky, and I saw the job opening, and I was like, Paizo, oh my gosh, that's Pathfinder, which I was familiar with. I just hadn't had a chance to play it yet. And I jumped at the opportunity, and I feel so lucky that I was able to be a part of this team, because like I said, tabletop gaming has just been so much fun. It's been, I do acting, so it's been a really great creative outlet for me, especially during pandemic times. So I fell in love with it and jumped at the opportunity to work for Paizo, and I want to, do as much as I can with Paizo, and I'm really excited to be here.
So now you said that you were already familiar with Paizo for Pathfinder, but had you played much Pathfinder yet?
No, actually I haven't. I've never played a game of Pathfinder or Starfinder. So yeah, it's kind of interesting going through all the rule books and everything, but it's been really fun trying to plan my own one shot. So
all right, well, change of plans. Everyone grab some dice.
Okay.
John, what are you playing? We are getting this
sweet. You're gonna learn how to run things cold today.
Oh, Logan's the GM? Okay, that's even better.
Is that not what we were aiming for?
I was going to be the GM, but no.
She said,
No, I like this better.
I'm preparing to run a one-shot. I was like, good, fantastic.
Well, I mean, I can give it my best shot, but it probably won't go very well.
That's the wonderful part about GMing. We never know.
True. I expect it to go completely opposite from everything I plan.
So are you're planning a completely original story?
Yeah. I am kind of basing it off of Firefly a little bit, having it be, more of just a crew going on a run and, encountering different monsters and stuff. So that's what I'm kind of cooking up in my brain right now.
Now, have you heard of the Live Free or Die adventure path?
Oh, I haven't.
John?
Yeah, so Fly Free or Die is coming out.
Did I say Live Free or Die?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did, but they both make exciting stories. Live Free or Die, the New Hampshire AP now? They'll be really happy about that one. So Fly Free or Die is an adventure path coming out. Oh boy, I'm going to get the date slightly wrong, but I think it's February of next year. And it is a 6-volume adventure path in which you are cargo runners. You are space truckers, as the head developer, Jake Tundra, oftentimes likes to put it. And on one hand, you're just trying to make an honest living, but most of the gigs that you get come with seedy contracts or mustache twirling questionable individuals, or oh no, it's a twist, or oh no, betrayed, or whatever. So you're going to find yourself getting into not only a lot of like smuggling runs and whatnot, but also some heist work, and it only escalates from there because it does take you from level 1 through 12. So
Oh wow.
you know, you can't be running space weasels across the border. All of those levels got to be some
The
variety.
weasels just get bigger and bigger.
It's weasels all the way down.
I mean,
So just to
weasels
correct
are
you, John, you said it
illegal
was
in
coming
this
out in
sector.
February. It's coming out in November. It's the next AP.
Oh, okay. Ooh, wow.
Ooh, really soon.
This,
So,
this
yeah,
shows you
it's-
how much I've been tracking which volumes has been coming out when. Although, yeah, it's right after Devastation Arc, and that's only a 3-parter.
Mhm.
That everything makes sense now. Okay.
So what was it about Firefly, Logan, that inspired you to base the game on that?
Oh wow. Everything. The characters for one. I mean, I love all the characters. I love how different all their personalities are, and I just really want that band of misfit feeling. I want my players to really just have fun with it, and I think just the idea of they somehow always get out of whatever predicament they're in. I just kind of wanted to have that little bit of a hero's journey, but it's also like they're not exactly protagonists. They're kind of just, these people trying to do their best and live their lives. So I think it was just the misfit crew just kind of doing their daily stuff and encountering crazy things while at it.
Now, this is a Starfinder adventure you're going to be running? Because if this is Pathfinder, I've got a blog article you need to read.
It
Chris
is
Jackson's.
Starfinder, but I would still be interested in that blog.
I mean, you can always
Logan,
do a
does that
little
count
bit
as your
of
first thing, that your inspiration you'll sometimes draw from pop culture, from the shows that you've been watching?
Yeah, definitely. Pop culture is huge for me. For inspiration, comic books, TV shows. I like to kind of mix and match favorite characters from movies and shows, like pull things that I really like from each one and kind of just combine it into my own character. And yeah, I mean, I do draw inspiration from others, but pop culture is definitely a huge contributor for me.
John, I believe you follow popular culture.
I mean,
I know it's a weird statement, but I'm like, no, we've definitely talked about things, right?
we've talked about stuff and fun. I feel that I follow pop culture far less than many of my colleagues, but I follow it decent, or I follow shows here and there, and will watch movies on occasion. But also, like in the past 3-4 years, especially with Starfinder booting up and increasing involvement in that, I've been chewing through various sci-fi media to catch up to speed. So I'm up to speed on a lot of like, I now know what Star Trek is. Hooray! 4 years ago, that was barely
Really?
a thing. Yeah.
wow.
That was a big thing.
Yes, but I don't know. I like grew up with a little bit of Star Wars, and somehow I think like realizing that there was a Star Wars versus Star Trek antagonism in various communities, was like, well, I guess I've seen one of them, so I guess I'm on that side now. I'm going to make fun of Star Trek without knowing anything about it for the next decade. And then I actually watched some of it, and it's delightful.
Got a favorite show yet?
In terms of favorite series of it?
Mhm.
Deep Space Nine is real nice.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm
long
glad
range.
you're a Niner.
Long range plot lines are delightful. The one that we finished watching most recently, though, was Enterprise, which like it has some rough starts, it has some rough episodes, but gosh, it had some really delightful characters and really cool. We're just getting into this plot lines, and geez, what's his face who plays Wayun and the one Andorian in Enterprise. Anything that he does is
Jeffrey
delightful.
Combs.
Yeah.
I'm happy I knew that. So we kind of we didn't really have an outline here. I mentioned that we would all be bringing our own items that we would be talking about for inspiration, however you interpret that. I have a prop, and so I'm going to go into my first item. One of the things that inspired this episode is this wine bag, because this is something that I got from my uncle, and it's you put your wine bottle in there, and there's an open top so that you can fit the cork out. I don't know if that's for preserving wine bottles or whatever. I don't know anything about wine, but I do know this would make an amazing dice bag if I was playing a champion or a cleric of Caden Galien. And so with no prior intention of playing a character that was devoted to Caden Galien, knowing that I now had a prop that was right on there and could even possibly use it as a dice roller, dice tower by just dumping out stuff from my bag, I started putting together what this character would be. If he himself would have such a bag, what that would mean to that character. And so this small thing that was just in a pile of other objects my parents were giving away suddenly became the only thing that I'm taking from their house when they're trying to get rid of stuff. And for the weirdest reasons, like they know I don't drink. And so when I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll take the leather wine bottle bag. I don't even know what officially to call it, but just because like I felt a connection to this and it sparked something greater in my mind than what it was ever supposed to be, and it got me on a track that I wanted to explore. So that is the kind of thing that like that's where I get a lot of my inspiration for my writing or for whatever I happen to be working on. It's rarely like I watch a show and then I want to adapt the show. It's I pick up a weird thing and I go way off in my own mind about what this thing actually is or could be, and then when I come finally back around, I've got ideas and I want to explore them.
I mean, I see it and I think, okay, you said it's for a Cadenite, and I think about like organized play shock value. This is kind of how I go about creating characters these days. But the idea of having several D20s in there and being like, well, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but this says basically take a swig, grab one of the dice from it in your mouth and spit it out on the table for your roll. I mean, that's of course hygienic these days, but
any days, but these days especially.
But I'm just thinking about the and then this person was drinking from a bottle and spit out dice, and it was terrifying.
So now I would need to have some kind of wine glass that I would spit into that would have a flat enough surface that it would count as a roll, and I would need to take my GM aside at the beginning of the session to like, here's this whole thing.
I mean, that's the important part about wine tasting. You don't actually drink it. You spit it out into the bucket.
Oh, I need a spittoon.
The dice bucket.
Right. But doesn't that violate Caden's teachings to waste wine?
I mean, I think it's better to do that than it is to overindulge, but you know, you're the one playing the character. I don't know anything about Caden.
Sure. He's still around in Starfinder, isn't he?
No. Well, we don't know. We don't know where he's at.
Had that question come up rather recently, so we've been cooking up answers.
Oh, he's just late to the party.
Just like him.
Yeah, he's passed out on the floor of the Gap.
In the far, far future, nobody cares about drinking.
It's his call, and he just took it personally. All right, Perram, what is the first item on your list?
I like to get my inspiration from video games, but not always the ones you're thinking about. It's real easy to get inspiration for an RPG adventure from The Witcher or from a Final Fantasy game and stuff. But, you know, I get some of my inspirations from just other narrative games, such as... I'm going to push this button, dang it! Like, every now and then, I'll, like, play a dating sim, and I'll, like, wow, that's a really interesting long-term plot that that would be added to once we throw swords and dragons at it. I mean, and ultimately, that's kind of what you're doing with any sort of adventure, is you've got to come up with a problem that, you know, can't easily be resolved, or will take some outside force to resolve it, something that the adventurers can do. And so, like, all sorts of media has that. And like I said, like with these like dating sims, this is one called the Hustle Cat, which is one where like a dude's under a curse and you get turned into a cat when you work at his restaurant, which is very weird.
So you're not the cursed dude. Just by interacting with the cursed dude, you get turned into a cat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just working at his restaurant is enough to turn you into a cat at night.
Wow.
I'm reaching out to the org play team right now. We're changing our next season.
But like seriously, like that could be a plot, you know, like a you know, that would be an interesting starting point for a plot. You know, there's this whole tavern where all the staff turn into werewolves at night, and like why? Because the owner did something terrible, and then like that just spirals out into like figuring stuff out. And also, especially if you cross genres, like if you take something that's sci-fi and you make it fantasy, or fantasy and sci-fi, even though they're actually just the same genre, then you can finally, you know, it helps to disguise and rub off the serial numbers or make it seem more original. But I mean, a plot is a plot is a plot, and no matter where you get the inspiration, you can turn into a great game if you're just willing to, you know, stretch your brain a little bit.
So I also get inspiration from video games, and also not the video games you might think. I play a lot of Overcooked, and every time I'm playing Overcooked, I'm like, I want an entire dungeon that follows this logic that it's like, you've got a simple task, make these cakes, but your cake mixer will suddenly move to the other side of the pirate ship that you're on, and there are bowling balls rolling around causing obstacles, and your partner is incompetent, and you have to yell at them until they get it right, because what do they think they're doing? Why did they cut up that ingredient? We already had that ingredient. There are just so many factors going on, all in real time. You have to communicate, but also super concentrate. And just like, I would love to recreate that feeling as the GM of just putting my players in the situation like, here's the reality, go.
I'm not sure if there'd be a session after that one.
So I understand that Overcooked ends a lot of friendships, but it strengthens my relationship with my wife. We really just like get out the other end and being like, we got 3 stars. Every single level we played tonight, we got 3 stars.
Me and the boy just do not play that game anymore. No.
You're missing out because Overcooked is brilliant.
The anxiety. I can't do it. I start panicking and then I can't. I just freeze.
Yeah, every time I bring up Overcooked, I have to mention that my friend Kathy refuses to be in the same room as me and Tina when we're playing Overcooked, because we are just barking orders at each other. But loving orders.
Like
objective-based orders.
Cut the tomatoes. Serve the hamburger.
I mean, ultimately,
stop throwing that thing.
Wasn't that like kind of some of the sales pitch for Pathfinder 2's traps? Like somebody would have to be over here doing this while the thief was over there doing that, and the spinning blades attacked them.
I think that was like one of the approaches to complex traps or hazards, but I think it's true for some of them, but not necessarily for others. But you know, if the game feels like a complex hazard with a routine to it, then clearly you're playing it right.
All right, so we are on the video game topic right now, and video games as inspirations. Anyone have anything else to chime in? Any games that have particularly inspired their games, inspired characters they've played?
I mean, as far as just games that we've been playing recently and then had to put aside because it became too real, Outer Worlds has been a trip. We're only like 15 hours into it or so, but already just like, oh gosh, every time anybody says anything, it hurts my soul. And just to give the virtually no spoiler elevator pitch for it, you sure are out in a solar system colony where it is run by a mega corporation that has monetized every part of everybody's lives. Want to use the bathroom? That'll probably cost you $0.25. Do you want like the right to be buried in the grave? Well, you're going to have to pay the graves tax to the corporation, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's just like, it starts off being kind of like, ha ha ha, funny, and then it goes real dark real fast. And then it gets funny again, then real dark. Which, like, I mean, this is kind of the thought process that oftentimes goes into Starfinder Society folks when we're making up outlines for things. We're just like, oh, what if we took this happy concept? What if we made it terrible? What if in the course of making it terrible, we also took one of the fan favorite NPCs and endangered them at the same time? Oh boy, it'll be like Overcooked, but like Ziggy is at risk of being chopped up and served in a souffle. Yeah. Wait for that chronicle sheet, Ryan.
Oh, I think you really broke Perram. Is
Chocolate
your favorite of yours, Perram?
Chocolate covered venture captain.
Order up? What order's up? Order Historia 7 is up right now. And then you just kind of carry on from there.
You just copy or roller back to the previous version?
I don't know. Software rollbacks don't always go smoothly.
I don't understand Starfinder references.
All right.
I know. I'm sorry, John. It's not against you. It's not against the game. It's just a matter of scheduling.
Well, I would reference it to, like, popular Pathfinder Society characters that might be endangered, but they killed all them.
I mean, some of them retired and or have ambiguous endings, so. And there are plenty of other lovable Pathfinder Society characters that just, they aren't Ziggy. And they aren't Grandmaster Torch.
Perram, something you said reminded me of one of my other inspirations. It wasn't on my list, but when you were talking about curses, I was recently listening to the Illusionist podcast, and they were talking about how they just found this, like, I think it was an ancient Greek well where people were just throwing their curses in. Like, it was somehow preserved enough that they could read some of these curses, and they were just going through all of them. And just the idea that you go into a town or a country, and if you cross somebody, you could expect to be cursed, and if those curses were real. And so, like, that's something that I'll often get ideas for adventures that I want to run from podcasts. Like 99% Invisible has done now 2 episodes about famous socialite mannequins, where there was just like a fashion designer who, when he would go out to parties, would bring a mannequin, and she would be wearing the top fashion, and it was gauche to not acknowledge her as a party guest, and you were supposed to treat her well. And by the end of the episode, they were talking to this expert who really knew this fashion designer, and they were like, nobody knows if he believed she was real or if that was all some game. Like, there is no evidence about what his side of that relationship actually was. And so, yeah, that I definitely am going to use him as an NPC at some point. Like, if just things have slowed down and I don't know what I'm going to do next, it's like, then a man walks into a bar carrying his mannequin. People are greeting this mannequin. They seem to know her well.
That has a lot of potential in adventure design. I'm thinking about like the classic several rounds of influence encounters that we sometimes do, and it's just like, there's the orc over there, there's this elf over here, there's a space squid, and then there's a mannequin, and there are some people talking to it right now, but then they start to leave, so the mannequin's free if you want that. Just like, don't even tell the players what skill checks they need to make, don't give them any prompts other than what it's wearing. But if they do the right things and they guess what the mannequin's thinking, then points.
Yeah, but if they address the person that's controlling the mannequin, oh, they get a major penalty on any of their rolls.
Good.
So yeah, there's just a few podcasts that I listen to like that. So Illusionist, 99% Invisible, Reply All of them just go into strange stories with like very specific detail. And any one of them could inspire an entire adventure or just a really out there character concept. More for NPCs. I think a lot of them are, it would just be too much to keep playing a character like that as the PC. But yeah, regularly when I'm listening to podcasts, I just want to stop what I'm doing, just get my friends together and get a game going. Logan, haven't heard from you in a while. What did you prepare a list? Did you have any other ideas that you wanted to explore?
I did. I forgot to bring the actual prop to show though. I know. It's like a little wooden pipe that my friend gave me, and has like little carvings in it, and that actually inspired me to help create the character that I play for the Curse of Strahd campaign that we do. It's a wood elf, so I kind of imagined her, making it herself. I imagined her like family teaching her how to do it. And that kind of just ended up being a bigger part of her than I was expecting it to be, especially because, it's just a wooden pipe, not something you really think about much. But it kind of is a sign of when she is feeling certain ways, she'll kind of pull it out and she'll be smoking on it. And that's kind of how you can tell, how she's feeling about certain situations or stuff like that. So it kind of helped me develop her personality, something so small.
So what came first, the prop or the need for something to develop your character?
I was starting to develop her and I just felt like she needed something. And then when I was given this pipe, I was like, that's it. That's what she needed. Something so simple, but it kind of just completed her. Yeah.
I'm imagining that there's a certain sort of signaling or language that you could develop with that pipe, where it's just like, oh no, 3 puffs. Oh gosh, everybody draw your weapons. Clearly something's about to go down.
Oh yes.
You
That
get
reminds me, there was one character I played, a staff magus, that he was a Pathfinder Society character, and I so only played him occasionally, and I always had trouble just getting into the character and feeling out what his niche was. And then just one time, I just went to the game with a stir stick from Starbucks, and I was just using it like he was using his staff. So like holding up this tiny stir stick as though it was supporting my whole weight, and it was like tapping on it when I was getting impatient. And so I just added it to my dice bag and took it everywhere with me. And from then on, when I was playing this character, he always had his stir stick staff, or the stir stick prop, to represent what he was doing with his staff, which was his like key weapon for the build.
I appreciate that you build your magical staves out of 60% recycled rainforest wood.
Oh, this is a few years ago. It might have only been about 40%.
How far we've come.
Yeah, that's I was gonna say too, I also weirdly enough get inspiration from dice. Different dice patterns and designs kind of give me inspiration for usually when I'm trying to decide class and race for a character. The different colors and like the different feelings I get looking at the dice kind of help me. I was able to actually, the wood elf that I play, she is also a blood hunter, and I had these green metal dice that ended up being used whenever she is using her right. So that kind of gave me the inspiration for the color of it, for how it looks, for and I only roll those dice too when I'm actually doing those actions. So it kind of helps me get into character, along with wearing some elf ears. That always helps me get into character as well.
Yeah, usually I will pick up dice for new characters, especially if it's a character I plan on doing long term. But it's usually just like kind of going for the color scheme or going for like a feel. But recently I noticed, so these are the dice I used for Xavier, my elven bard on Adventurous. And I did not intend, like, these are dice I've only used for Xavier, and I did not realize that they were the colors of the trans flag until recently. And that was never an intention for Xavier, but now that I've made that connection, I'm wondering, is this something that I'm exploring? Is this my dice inspiring a direction to take my character? I don't know. I'm still pondering it just now that I've made that connection.
That's really interesting. Actually, a new character I just made is a Verdin, and they're characterized as not having like genders, and they kind of can change the way they look, which inspired me to have a non-binary character and to explore playing that, and that has been, it's been really cool.
Cool. Another inspiration for Xavier, I got this unicorn action figure, and now I just want a unicorn for Xavier. But unfortunately, I have very little control over if that happens. That's not really character development as much as it is plot development. So I put in the request with our GM Crystal, and we'll see where that goes.
That is all a matter of guilting. Just like, I got the action figure already, or look, I already painted the mini, and any of that leverage.
You seem to have some experience guilting Crystal.
I mean, I have experienced guilting a lot of people, but yeah, guilting Crystal too. I miss her. It's been a long time.
Lava Being in chat is suggesting that I just keep saying I'm looking for unicorn tracks.
I like that.
Downtime activity or middle of encounters.
I mean, that's a sort of invitation. That's the sort of thing that triggers an exchange that establishes canon without really knowing it. Because you can say, I'm looking for unicorn tracks. Crystal just sort of blinks for a moment, like, okay, well, normally those would look like horse tracks. So please enlighten me. What do unicorn tracks look like? And then suddenly, boom, you're ready.
Same, but sparkly.
Yeah, and horse tracks that are sparkly, or they always, I don't know, they always have a little special imprint on the inside of the hoof or something like that.
Sure, just a little line sticking out of it.
Like a unicorn horn, man.
Exactly.
No. Justin Slutter in chat says it's Crystal. You'll get the unicorn as Jerky.
Yeah.
I hope she's watching.
Delicious immortality.
I'll have to send her 2 emails after this. One of them will be, Crystal, kill the unicorn. And then I'll wait 5 minutes, and then I'll send her another one, and I'll be like, oh, by the way, get Ryan a unicorn. Because if I just tell her to kill the unicorn first, she'll be on board.
Perram, we need to keep this unicorn safe.
Protect it at all costs.
The only way to keep it safe is to never find it.
No.
Yeah, this is like Last Unicorn all over again.
Keep it out of any backstory.
Yeah, you can't keep on keeping your animal companions in a bag of holding. It's just irresponsible.
You get hostiling armor.
Speaking,
just wear them as patterns on your armor.
Speaking of adventurous characters, Glenville's a good example of a character who was inspired entirely from a single voice line, which I do a lot. Sometimes I'll just come up with, or I'll hear a voice line that a character says, or I'll say a voice line, or, I'll just do a voice and say a phrase or a catchphrase. And then I'll think, what kind of character would say that? What would be involved with it? And then grow the character from there. And then when I want to play that character or GM that character, I'll say the exact same phrase again, and that'll get me both my voice and my frame of mind right back into it. And for Glenville, it's actually...
Yeah, I know I've played a half-orc that every time I had to get in character, I licked my tusk, just... I would speak. And I've talked about this before, but one time I was GMing, what's the Sarni officer, John?
Carl Carilla?
Yes. And so I decided to give him a speech tick where he swallowed his R's. So it's not like, I'm a Sarni, I'm a Sarni. And then I practiced a sentence and it was fine. But then the first time I actually tried to do it, I was just going like, it looked like I was having an asthma attack at the table. And one of the players was even like, are you okay? But I was committed. And so I just kept trying to muscle through. It was a mistake. I never did it again.
Yeah, those 300 to 400 words of read aloud text will take you down.
Yeah. But the one sentence introducing him worked fine somehow.
Well, sometimes just necessity will invent a character or how I play a character in society. Like, one of the characters I often I don't have to play him anymore for reasons we previously talked about, is Major Coulson Maldris, which is like, one of my favorite characters to role play, because he has some interesting adventures that he likes to introduce, and some very creative definitions of the G in the alignment. But when I usually have to GM him a lot, I'm in the middle of a convention and I'm having to scream. So I had to come up with a voice and personality that I could scream over thousands of other Pathfinder players, and my players would, which is why Major Coulson Maldris is always just Arlie Ernie.
So along similar lines, I was once playing the character, Doreen in the Hell's Rebels, when we were doing Hell's Rebels, and I was modeling her voice after Raven from Teen Titans, from the cartoon, and it was just very, like an annoyed whisper, and she was just always very low but very intense. And we were playing with my friend Matt remote while everyone else was around the game table, and the microphone we had did not pick up the whisper at all. And so I eventually just had to completely drop this characterful way of speaking and just speak as Ryan whenever I was playing Doreen. And it took me out of the character. It was kind of disappointing. It was something that I'd crafted and was really looking forward to playing more than most other aspects of the build. And so losing that, I lost a lot of that character.
Yeah, I like to use accents as well to help me kind of develop character. It kind of helps me with their background. Not very good at it, but I'm working on the Irish accent right now.
Oh, I am terrible at accents, and it's the only thing that saves me with my characters being recognized. So I just do bad accents or impersonations and mangle them so much they think I invented it.
Yeah, when I play Stone Throw, my dwarf with the kangaroo companion, and I made him Australian, he'll start a sentence Australian and get Southern American by the end of the sentence, and I don't know how, and I have no control over it, and I'll be very confident at the start of the sentence, at the start of the session, be like, I finally got a consistent Australian accent. I'm going to play it all the way through just like that. No, I lose him halfway through the session, and I never get him back.
No. I have explored accents a little bit, but even though I can get into accents in the moment, I cannot do them on demand terribly well. So I usually go with some form of catchphrase or undefined vendetta. So like my War for the Crown character has a backstory that involves face stuff. I've never gotten into it with any of the players, despite us being partway into book 3. But they do know that anytime that there's Fae or anything supernatural, I'll blame it on the Fae. So she's like, oh, there's a Manticore over there. Sounds like the Fae have been at it again. Okay. Or we run into a gremlin and like we capture it, and I start slamming into the ground and being like, where's my brother and my sister? And they're like, okay, we don't know what's going on several different levels anymore. We wanted to know how to get out of this place. That's a good point. How do we get out of this place? And then they might ask me later on, it's like, so what was that whole thing about earlier on? Irrelevant. We're moving. We're getting out of here, like you said. And then a ghost will happen. It's the Fae again. And the key is just to never have enough knowledge skills to actually understand the mistakes that you're making.
Perram, you had a PFS character who treated animals from like normal Earth animals like they were the most exotic fantasy creatures ever. And that always stood out as really interesting characterization.
Oh my gosh, I don't even remember that one. My bad.
Really?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. We encountered an elephant, and you were just going on
But
and on
because
about how strange and exotic this creature was.
Think about it. If you're like in northern Aveston, and you're adventuring there, and you're like, there's this strange animals that are in the Mwangi, and then you go down there, and the Sargova place has T-Rexes and stuff. You're gonna see an elephant. You're gonna be like, and more strange weirdness from Mwangi.
Logan, I felt like I cut you off just now.
Oh, I was just going to kind of go back to like the whole accent topic. The cleric that I'm playing now, Ren, is possessed by 2 different personas. So there's Ren, who is the main like host that you see, and then there's 2 completely different personalities that come out as well. One is Chaos, one is the Protector. And I have had to come up with voices for every single one just to kind of differentiate between each character, as well as giving them kind of different appearances, little subtle changes that everyone in the party kind of will know when someone's coming out because of that. But it's definitely been interesting finding the inspiration for such different voices to make sure it's specific and you can tell who is who. So I definitely drew some inspiration from Zarya on Overwatch for the Protector. And Chaos, oddly enough, the voice that popped into my head was Pegasus from Yu-Gi-Oh! So that was interesting. But and then Ren has a British accent, so it's kind of chaotic, but it's fun.
Well
so
done, Ren.
you've
You've triggered my trap card.
So yeah, you're not explicit about when you're changing personalities. You're completely letting the performance dictate who's in charge, and the people have to figure it out on their own.
Yeah, sometimes I will kind of know internally that there's little triggers going on that is going to make another persona come out. Sometimes our DM will send me little whispers as we're playing on Roll20 saying, hey, you're kind of feeling this way a little bit, and then I kind of take it from there, and slowly you can see the transformation happen. My character has big huge ears that they keep back into like a little ring, but when Chaos comes out, that
so
ring
uncomfortable.
I actually just got a more comfortable ring for myself in our last session, which is ironic, but when Chaos comes out, those ears come out as well, so little things like that.
Chaos is here, the ears are out.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point too. A good inspiration for helping your characters be more fleshed out is to have them have problems that don't involve killing things with pointy objects, such as finding a more comfortable ring. I have one character who's just like building the best wagon they've ever could think of, and every time that comes up, I can always throw a side quest. I'm like, that toffee table's made out of some really great recycled wood. Do you think maybe they'll part with it?
Imagine the struts I could turn that into.
Your characters should have hobbies. If they have hobbies, then they have motivations, and then the monsters can be connected to it. Because I will slay 1,000 goblins if it means that I get the last book in my collection of the Pathfinder Chronicles.
You don't get volume 5.
No, nobody gets volume 5.
Nobody gets volume 5.
Let's wait his copy of volume 5.
Oh no.
You expect the red mantises any moment.
Yeah.
So the next broad category on my list is life experiences. And I kind of collect ideas that I could some day incorporate into descriptions or whatever, or just I will never be going on these fantasy adventures. So anytime I do something in real life that reminds me of something odd that I believe will bring out the weirdness of an adventure, I try and keep track of it. One of my recent memories is I was on a Cuban vacation and I was in a particularly heavy tide in the ocean. And so I was just kind of crawling on my knees through the gravelly sand. And when I got out, a lot of my leg hair was gone. Like I had bare patches on my shins and I was not expecting that. And it's like, oh man, the next time I can concoct this scenario, somebody's getting their leg waxed by the ocean. And I'm going to say it, I'm going to sit back and they're just going to react to it. And I want to see where this goes. And if they have similar thoughts to the weird thoughts I'm having now that I've got these weird bare leg patches on my vacation.
I know lava being... Oh, sorry.
That's a good way to get the players to be like, I hate the ocean. We're declaring war on the ocean.
I know Lava Being couldn't have timed this because it was like 10 minutes ago, but they just said hairless mammoth.
Yeah, that's an apt description.
I was going to say, that's how you get more Anakin Skywalkers who don't like sand.
I was like, was Anakin Skywalker known for his smooth legs? Where's she going with this?
He's known for not liking his sand.
I'm just imagining the final lava fight where, he gets tossed slightly into the surf and his legs pop off and he just emerges like, what have you done to me, Obi-Wan?
I wasn't expecting the tide in the lava pit to rip off my legs. What? Who knew? Something else that happened on that same trip, we went to a salt mine, and the whole time we were down there, it felt like I had just had a bag of chips. And it's like, that totally makes sense. It's a salt mine. There's salt in the air. It's salty. Of course it is. But going into it, at no point in all of the descriptions of the salt mine did I expect a flavor to the experience. And that's something that I remember. I think it was Wolfgang Bauer was the one who said this on a seminar one time. Just like when you're describing a room, describe as many of the senses as possible and really think about smells and tastes, because those are the ones that usually get neglected. And they're also the ones that will really have the most visceral effect in your description.
I'm cheating a little bit, but I've had way too many near-death violent experiences, and so I use that as inspiration for this is what your character probably feels like when they survived and like fighting a monster that absolutely should have killed them. I do not recommend you all go out and find near-death violent experiences, though. That's a bad way to up your game.
Yeah, for your Firefly-inspired game, Logan, you're just going to have to go and, steal something.
Yeah.
See how it feels so that you can really describe that rush to the players.
Exactly.
I did it for research.
Oh, you're a GM? All right, we'll let you off this time.
As I'm being
back all those
handcuffed.
diamonds.
Taken away.
You show up to your court date now.
think the judge will take that as an excuse.
We won't be able to use that judge. In fact, they had to call out they had a conflict of interest because during your game you gave them a unicorn, and so we can't trust anything out of their mouths.
Oh yeah, they owe you big time. That's why Crystal hasn't given me a unicorn. She knows someday I might have to be her character witness.
I think that's Crystal knows how to. I'm sure knows how to pass a bribe. She would never tell anybody that that's why you were supporting her. She'd just be like, "The unicorn is in the woods," and then be like, "Yeah, Crystal had an alibi. She was hanging out with me several states away."
In the woods.
No. We're back to culpability.
All right, Perram, you got something on your list?
I've listed off my list. Oh no, visuals. Too many games and adventures that I've seen run believe that the world exists in a top-down perspective of no verticality and interest. That is bad. That is really bad, gang. Vertical, interesting environments will inspire adventures, and this is one of the few times I'll say absolutely go play some video games. If you want to design a dungeon for any RPG ever, playing through, or at least playing the Dark Souls series is a requirement at this point in your life. That level design and presentation of these extreme environments and how they transform into interwoven dungeons is absolutely marvelous. And you could say this about all sorts of art and all sorts of visuals, but imagine what characters are seeing. Look at like really cool vistas and fantasy art and try to make those places for your characters to explore. I mean, if the world is 10 by 10 hallways, then like, why is anybody going to remember this one or the next one?
So it's interesting because you and I both have very different takes on just the visual of the dungeon, and I am not a visual person. And so when you said like that, we're not just on a flat top-down surface, it reminded me of an experience. And I believe as a GM, I'm often like tapping into experiences and describing the experience of being there, because my worlds are monochromatic and boring to look at, but to be there, somehow it feels great. And it just reminded me at my office, I'd walked into the kitchen, I took out the pot for coffee. Oh, there was a new pot brewing. And so I quickly put it back. And my friend Emily was there and she laughed at me. And then Stone, a coworker, comes in and does the exact same thing. And she's just like, can you guys not see that the coffee is brewing? And it's like, no, we literally can't, because we're 6 foot. And when we look down, you don't see the stream, but Emily is like 5 foot and she does. And I was like, okay, like, remember that when I'm describing a room, and if there's like a dwarf in the party, and it's like they're seeing things that they think is super obvious to them because they've just got a 1 foot shorter perspective. And so like emphasize just how much that slight change in angle changes a room completely to them.
Depending upon the order of your presentation, you can also play with the player's expectations a fair bit, because you can enter that room and be like, a chandelier hangs from this tile ceiling, and there are gems along the very top border of the ceiling. Just describe everything that's in like the top 3 feet of this room, and then say, for the rest of you who can see over the 4 foot barrier that is in front of you, you can see that the rest of this, and then describe all the rest of the room. But everybody gets sort of drawn into the like, apparently the only important thing here is the ceiling, so this is our life now.
First gravity exists for a reason.
I have several more things on my list, but I'd like to just make sure that I'm not hogging all the time. Logan, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. Actually, I kind of wanted to circle back a little bit to talking about movies being inspiration, just because I have some new inspiration that I kind of want to put towards something. Obviously, it's October, it's spooky season, so I'm trying to watch, some Halloween themed movies this month. And last night I watched They Live by John Carpenter for the first time.
Nice.
And I loved it. I loved everything about it. Like that, if I can put a list of everything I want in an 80s film, that has everything on it. But the main storyline just it's an older movie. I don't think I'm spoiling it if I say it, but just the mystery of having like these aliens taking over society and people not knowing about it it's so interesting to me that I want to somehow put that into a game somehow.
So like
the full conspiracy.
what's also cool about that is that that could just be a subplot of your campaign setting. So it's not, it doesn't have to be what's going on. That's, you know, they could be there to fight the dragon, but while they're there, you know, there's this whole city where there's two different sets of people, the people who know and the people who don't, and they could explore it or they could not. And because it's based on a movie, it's not like you're prepping this big, long, elaborate plot that if they don't explore it, you lose something. You've got most of the prep work done by, you know, John Carpenter and Roddy Piper. That's
so true. That's such a good idea.
One of the wonderful things that I feel that you can explore with either this idea or the Firefly one that you're about to do are the dual campaign reversals, where you start running a game for people with the set of characters that they make. You do a couple of fun sessions, whatever, you're done. Okay, close it up in a meaningful way. Start another campaign. Same world, same general location, same timeline. And now the PCs from the first one are in fact either the people of interest or possibly even the villains of the new story. So for example, in your Firefly one, you can have the people run their heist, get away with the thing, and then next little campaign that you set up is, okay, I'm hiring you to take down some firebrands who just ran a heist on this train and have made off with, like, I don't know, the only vaccine for this whatever disease, or the key to enlightenment, or all the gold in the world, whatever it happens to be. And like the players are like, oh, we know, but we don't know, but we know. Oh, we did that. What do you mean they blew up the third car on the track? That only terrible people would do that. Shit, they know. Oh, sorry, but you know, that sort of thing. But even with the They Live thing, it's play a couple of sessions of the campaign and then play a new campaign where all the players are paranormal hunters and they are on the lead of the first set of PCs, because the clues are pointing to those PCs having been, you know, the Greys, the Insiders, the whatever. And just watch as your players flip out.
I love it.
But now what's the end game? Do they switch back to the original characters?
I think what you end up doing is you play for anywhere from the same amount of time to twice as long in the second campaign, and you gradually take the temperature of your group. And if they are really digging the paranormal hunter thing and they're just like, we don't ever need to go back to that first group because, oh man, we've clearly unearthed something crazy, then you can do that. You can even have the end game be that these are in fact two campaigns in parallel, and you flip back and forth between them every so often. And you can jump back to the first one and be like, all right, we're back to these PCs who are apparently human and elf and Kasatha. Okay, I'm sure that's entirely true, and now you know. But continue as you were.
I love that idea. Such a good idea.
Now, John, I know you've got it's an archaeology background, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious if you've ever used your formal background as inspiration, or like in plotting and in how you present your games.
My archaeology, like, I end up using more of the history side of things when it comes to game design and creation and setting design, but archaeology tends to spring up in small ways as much as I can fit it in without things becoming terribly off topic. So when it comes to things like, hey, let's understand this city that has been around for apparently millennia in our setting. Okay, that city had better have layers to it. There'd better be, we knocked down this house, we built a new house on top of it, but there's still at least 3 feet of the old house, and just gradually escalation. So there's that. When it comes to like some of the Druma work that I did, a lot of that history and development was based on various cultures that I've researched, or like dumb moments in history, because dumb moments in history are the best moments in history, where it's like, wait, so you mean that this whole war went this way because this general couldn't find his left shoe that morning, and thus the offensive was delayed an hour? Okay, welcome to history. And being able to fit those things in is an absolute delight, because it shows that there is a human, or as close to human as we care to be, element to the settings, and that not everybody is slapdash heroic and shining in silver armor. You got some influential people who are dumb too.
Yeah, it's kind of always presented like the PCs are the ones that are just the most chaotic element in the world, and otherwise things are completely on track. But no, if you treat the NPCs like they're PCs, then the world becomes a lot more chaotic and probably a lot more interesting.
A lot of times when people like start dissecting some of our villains, being like, "This was a totally unrealistic villain," and I just look back at them sometimes and I say, "Have you met people?" We're all kind of zany and flawed in terrible ways. Yeah, but I would never monologue. Oh, you would monologue. Come on. How often do you get to have the heroes tied up in your death trap dungeon dedicated to Urgathoa and scheming about your lichdom?
I've definitely gotten into arguments on Facebook where I kind of won, and then I kept going and became the villain of the argument.
Okay, I thought you were just going to end it with the first bit of like, ranting about lichdom. Well, I've gotten into some arguments on Facebook. Done. Scene. But beyond that,
this guy thinks about phylacteries.
Yeah. The other thing that I tend to enjoy, though, are listening to science podcasts and actually economics podcasts, just as far as framing world development. But as far as like science podcasts, I was listening to one of the NPR podcasts called Shortwave, which is like 10 minutes of random science fact today. Here's an expert. We geek out for a little bit. And the one from a day or two ago was about bears in hibernation. And they had this large mammalian carnivore expert on who was geeking out about bears. And the host asked, like, well, I don't want to be crude, but I have heard on good authority that after waking up from hibernations, bears take a monumental poop. Is that true? And it's like, yeah, well, I mean, you've been in a cave for 4 months, you would too. But like, those are the sorts of moments where you then think about that from the perspective of like a fantasy RPG where things are going to be close enough to reality, but you get to twist it in weird ways. And so like that started making me think like, what if like some of our fantasy bears, when they're recycling all of their waste in their body through hibernation, are in fact purifying or hardening it or something like that. So they're in fact pooping out a gemstone, or something that people treat as a precious material. And that way, every spring you can have the scat hunters running out into the woods and be like, where do you think a bear layered this winter? And I'm like, one of my favorite moments in a video game was the Sega CD Lunar game, where like the first dungeon is, we're going to go into a dragon cave and get a dragon gem, as like your plucky companion's like, we're going to be rich, it's going to be great. And you finally get to the dragon who's like, oh, who are you? It's like, we're here for a dragon gem. And the dragon's line is like, you understand those are made of, and like starts to give the first several letters of basically a foul defecant. And your character's interrupts like, we don't care, it's worth money, we'll take it. But the idea that like pearls, what is it? Ambergris. Certain valuable substances can come from the darndest places that you really don't want to think about is exciting to me, and it just makes me want to write more Alien Archive entries so that I can create the bear that poops gems over the winter.
I don't know where ambergris comes from.
Ambergris comes from sperm whales, where when they eat giant squid in particular, they cannot properly digest the beaks. And the beaks tend to get into their upper and lower intestines and get lodged in a way that causes inflammation. And the response is to release a greasy substance that coagulates around the beaks. Over time, this creates a giant mass about the size of like a rugby ball, or even larger, that will then get warped out the other end of the whale, and they naturally float. And so ambergris is not terribly impressive. Well, let's be clear, it's not going to become any more impressive. Is not terribly impressive when it first emerges, but over the course of several years of drifting in the ocean and getting sunbaked and also thoroughly salted, ambergris turns into this almost rock-like substance that washes up on beaches and for several centuries was a major foundational element and a fixing component in perfumes and cosmetics. So it's like starts with a C, the junk that comes out of a beaver's rear end, which is used for the same stuff. But it's basically worth more by mass than gold. And so there are ambergris hunters who will comb beaches seeking this stuff out so they can put it on the market. We have many synthetic compounds that are now used instead of it, but ambergris still has a place in the cosmetics industry and several others. So I don't know, dab it on, it'll be great.
Castoreum is the
Castoreum,
stuff from beaver's butts that can be used for vanilla flavoring.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense because castor is the French word for beaver.
But yeah, next time that you take down something in a fantasy RPG, ask yourself not what can I skin this, what can I make from its hide, but what glands does this have, and am I going to regret this?
Well, Lauren is an adventuress, and she has a marine biology background, and she does ask those questions because she's playing a poisoner, and so she's always looking for her next poison. And it's always fun when the Lauren and the Lily lines blur, and it makes you wonder just how much you can trust Lauren with your beverage.
Never. Has this changed what your space trucker is going to be hauling, Logan?
Oh,
space squid beaks.
I think I have too many ideas now. Now I'm just gonna make a whole bunch.
There's always the critical question for a Firefly-like delivery scenario of, do the players actually know what the cargo is?
Ooh, see, I think that might stay a secret. I think I might be the one who knows that one.
There you go.
There's the paperwork that shows exactly what's inside the containers. No need to check.
Yeah, and then your players go through hell and back and are nearly killed 5 times over, and they drag themselves across the finish line to make the delivery. And it's like, we hope this was worth it. And guy cracks open the crate, and it's just full of like salted potato chips. And like, we nearly got ourselves killed for $23 worth of potato chips, and he'll just crunch in like, they remind me of the salt mines. And then you can bring everything full circle, and your players can have a new NPC whom they loathe.
Speaking of Firefly and The Expanse, they both share this in common, is I think that we underestimate the value of failure for inspiration. One of my favorite ways to come up with adventures that are just a little bit more interesting than the others is, whatever adventure I was actually thinking about, what if some other group screwed that up? How does that change what needs to happen now? And that is often a much more interesting, deeper storyline than everything going well.
Do you have an example?
Oh, sure. I mean, like Midnight's like the classic example. The Midnight campaign setting is like, what if, okay, so let's take Lord of the Rings and Sauron wins. And so what's the world like now that Sauron won? Or, Rise of the Rune Lords, I would love to play, what would happen if Rise of the Rune Lords went south immediately? Like, what does New Zincelost look like?
I just like the idea of calling the AP, they rose.
Aaron is in chat comparing your story, John, about the potato chips to the egg episode in The Mandalorian. And yeah, I think
very much, yes.
Just through body language and context, we all felt what the Mandalorian was feeling in that scene.
Yeah.
The I want to crush your heads level of experience. Yeah, I mean, failure, Perram, of like, okay, somebody else botched this up, but also, we just TPK'd or we just failed our mission. Where does this go from here? And suddenly that's the whole story. One of my other college games, I only ever ran 2 of them, I think, was sure did they sure were hired by a person who was coming along with them to raid a tomb. They decided on the way there, conspiratorially, that clearly their employer was going to kill them once they found the tomb. So before they opened the tomb, they killed their employer, and without any evidence, and never even went in the tomb, and like hid his body in a ditch and then went on the lam the whole time. And our whole campaign was about being on the run from the law.
Not intentionally, though.
Not intentionally, but
like, not by design.
Yeah.
And I mean,
players are great.
It's an old hat at this point. Your players' paranoid conjecture is like the best source of inspiration for them.
Well, and don't act
definitely like my
PCs
players
haven't earned that paranoia from GMs constantly doing the quest giver was the villain twist.
I never do that because
Me
they
neither.
expect it too much.
I've
and also,
tried it before.
Such a breach of trust.
Trust. Bleh, you don't need that.
So one of my sources for where I got ideas for monsters comes from my kids. Just watching it. So like today, okay. I've got a Gremlins 2 action figure, and he comes with a little vial of the spider stuff that when he drank it, he became the spider gremlin. So my daughter was playing with the little spider vial, and she started pretending to be watering the flowers with it. And it was like, ooh, like spider flower. Like just, it looks like a flower, but then like the roots just kind of form up into the legs and it starts crawling around and you've got a spider flower. And that's all I need. All I need is the idea of spider flower. And I'm like, I know what to do with this thing. I know 100% what kind of monster this is, and I cannot wait to ambush somebody with it. And along similar lines, my daughter got a pack of like spider rings, and they all have just a gem on the back. And it just happened to fit around the neck of her Simba lion. And so she's got this Simba with this gem on his back and spider legs coming all around. And I'm concocting the scenario where it's like, okay, so you got what you think is an amber, but the amber is actually, again, some kind of ambush spider. But it wraps around, say, the animal companion in the party and has some kind of mind control. And you've got to fight the spider on the back of the animal companion while it's fighting against the party. And it was really just like my kids just putting two toys together and just leaving it somewhere that I could observe it. And I was like, all right, I've got my monster, I've got my encounter, I just need a game to run this in.
I like the idea that we'll eventually walk in on you and you're basically doing the dinosaurs fighting thing. And you're like, Ryan, what is going on? And you're just like, market research.
It's my kids that are playing with these toys.
I just imagine Wash playing with the dinosaurs.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I heard like the little amber on the back of the spider, and it makes me think. I was watching a little video about carnivorous plants before I joined in here, and it makes me think about creatures that would evolve in an adventurer-rich environment. And we already have mimics and all that stuff, but I feel we could also deal with something that grows little gem-like projections in the middle of it and just has a little snapjaw trigger and just. It waits for somebody who loves shiny stuff. I mean, it could even be built to trap gamers if you made shiny dice, and they always showed up in the middle of that.
I just realized that I just talked down the idea of the quest giver as the villain, but treasure as the villain, I'm all on board for.
Yeah.
Just imagine a gold piece that bites back.
Is this real?
Or like I believe it's the last Harry Potter film, or where the coins multiply when they're touched, and kind of fills up the whole bank vault to where they almost can't get out.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
I like the idea of it like multiplying with touch, though.
So I've basically depleted my list. I have a feeling that most of us have. Is there anyone else that wanted to throw any last idea in there that has inspired their game in the past, or you think could inspire our listeners in their own games?
I mean, I would just bring up the treasure as villain thing again, because that's a concept that has numerous applications. So make sure you're using that somehow.
So I did the Monsters of Sin series for Cobalt Press, and one of them was the Horde Golem, where you kill the dragon and you just go, man, that's a lot of gold. And then the gold just gets up and starts beating you up.
Good.
All right, Logan, any final anything you want to throw out there?
No, I'm feeling really inspired now after having this conversation. So
Right?
I'm super excited to start really planning my game. Like I'm probably going to crack open the book right after I get off of this and start planning some stuff.
Awesome. Excellent. I hope that's kind of the feeling that everyone on the show, everyone that was listening kind of has. Perram, do you have anything?
One thing, one of the, and this one's going to be real quick because I've said it before, really cool looking gaming props and especially miniatures often inspire encounters. So like the most famous example I give is I saw in the old D&D miniature line against the giants, they had this frost giant riding a mammoth. I'm like, I have to invent a reason for that to happen because I want to. And then like Arc Villain Games, wrong thing. Arc Villain Games just released the Cirque Grotesque, and it's got like this giant 6-armed clown with mouths coming out of its chest and arms and legs and stuff, and it's floating 10 feet off the ground, and it's 15 feet tall. And like, yeah, that's gonna be an adventure because I need a reason to use that.
Oh, it was supposed to be a mammoth with a giant.
No, you're getting your evil clowns.
I don't like this game anymore.
So actually, on the subject of well done miniatures, as
okay.
I mentioned earlier,
This is safer. I thought it was on the subject of scary
on the
clowns.
subject of evil clowns.
I knew it. You had me at Canadian.
The third game, Logan. Okay.
Yes.
No, on the subject of interesting miniatures, like I've said earlier, I am not a visual person, and I often tend to get a miniature because it's cool, and then I sit down to paint it, and it's like I got nothing. And so, also on that trip to Cuba I did recently, I saw a lizard, and I was just like, I have had that Reaper Bones Tarrasque sitting unpainted forever because I just look at it and I have nothing. I want the pattern on the back of that lizard. Like I took a picture of it, I brought it home, and it's like, this is going to be my Tarrasque. That small little gecko or whatever it was that I saw, I finally have a paint scheme for it. And I often get a similar feeling when I'm watching Dragon Prince on Netflix. I just love the color palettes on that show, and it just makes me want to make entire armies based on the color schemes that they've put out. There's so much thought put into it, so many little details, but it's also just large swaths of color, so I know I can also handle it. So it's also fun when there's just like an inspiration for my miniature painting, because I know that is an area of creativity that I totally lack.
Midwinter Minis also recently did a tip on their video that I have done for years and years and years, is if you want a really cool, interesting color scheme for painting your models, just take a movie poster you're fond of and pull the colors from that.
Oh, actually, on the subject of taking a picture, I recently saw a cool tip that if you're looking for a color palette, take a picture that you enjoy and then put the mosaic filter on it, and it'll just break it down into the actual colors, and so then you can just use that to create your palette, and that has changed how I look at colors now.
Kind of going off of that, I don't think it's on anymore, but I would watch the show Face Off that was about special effects makeup, and that definitely gives good inspiration for character design and monsters, and just the things that they think of blew my mind, and I know I definitely took notes from that one.
Because they also do the like engineering, right? It's not just aesthetic, but also the function. Like, that is inspiration fuel right there.
Oh yeah.
I thought you were like, John Travolta would be an awesome villain.
That's the other Face Off. But yeah, all of my NPCs sound like either John Travolta or Nicolas Cage, and nobody's complained.
There are worse dynamics you can have.
I had a lot of fun with this conversation. This was not exactly an episode we knew what we were going to be doing with until a couple of days ago. And so both of your contribution to it really just made this conversation fun, informative. I really think that a lot of people will be listening to this podcast, scrubbing down notes because they just want to get a game in as soon as they're done with this. So thank you very much for your participation in that. We are going to be right back to do some shout outs. So I invite both of you to stay and then do your shout outs there. Normally we would do it at the end of the segment, but we're just throwing all the rules out the window today. So Perram will be right back with the wrap-ups and shout-outs right after this.
Wrap-ups and shout-outs. Wrap-ups and shout-outs. Wrap-ups wrap-ups, and shoutouts.
And we're back.
Thank you for joining us for episode 234 of No Direction, the No Direction Network's Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. Before we go, we'd like to bring your attention to some things that maybe not necessarily Pathfinder related, but definitely us related. And we think that if we like this, maybe you would be interested in it as well. But starting with our guests, we would like to hear if there's anything that you think our fans should be paying a little more attention to, either for your benefit or for the world's benefit. Really, it's up to you. John, would you like to start?
My perennial thing of there are wonderful adventures out there ready for you to run at the drop of a hat. So always feel free to mine any of the Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society adventures that are out there, because even if you're not going to run them as written, you can always adapt them and mine them for wonderful ideas similar to the ones that we have been bantering around for the last hour and change. So I strongly encourage you to check those out. We just released one of mine recently called Falling into Deliverance, which is a bit of a thriller, low-key horror adventure on a space station. So check it out.
I really did enjoy that the last segment started with Logan saying she wants to run a Firefly-inspired Starfinder game, and then it's like, we got news for you. Logan, is there anything you'd like people to check out?
Not off the top of my head. I know something personally that I'm doing on the side is me and my partner are making a dice shop where we're going to be making commissioned dice off of Etsy. It's called the Barking Bard Dice Co. on Etsy, and we're hoping to have that launched by the beginning of the year.
How do you make dice?
With resin. So I commissioned a master dice set, and I just have to make the molds. Then once I make the molds, I will then use resin and all kinds of cool colors and glitter and knickknacks.
And you make them with unicorns. I hear Ryan could use a unicorn die.
I'll have to remember that one.
Excellent.
Extra red.
Frankie. I normally have a podcast that I'd like to shout out to, but I actually don't remember where on my list I am at. So I'm going to skip that this week because I do have a pretty big network-related shout out. So before we get to that, Perram, did you have anything you want people to pay attention to?
I've got one, and it was actually inspired by you talking about wanting an Overcooked adventure. If you want to read something that's just going to make you feel good, go look up Delicious Dungeon. It's a manga series that you can read, and it is about fantasy adventurers that go into dungeons not because for treasure, but because monsters taste good and they are ingredients like radish gremlins and onion monsters.
Oh gosh.
And if you want to play this yourself, there's actually a video game that was heavily inspired of it called Battle Chef Brigade.
Cornering a hobgoblin is like, I haven't done anything. It's like, no, but you taste delicious. I feel bad for that hobgoblin.
I was guilty of nothing but being high in vitamin D.
So my shout out is to our guest bloggers every October. Well, okay, this is the second time we've done this. So I can now officially say annually, we have the tradition in October where we invite guests from the community to contribute blogs to the No Direction website, giving our regular bloggers a couple of well-deserved weeks off and giving us just a chance to catch up on people we haven't talked to in a while, get spotlights on different people that we are impressed with in the community, and we really want just you to check them out. So we've announced the first week of the bloggers. I don't want to announce who's going to be a guest next week, just in case somebody can't make it and then it's been announced that they should have done something and everyone knows they didn't make it. So on Monday, we released Chris A. Jackson, who has written a lot of the Pathfinder Tales novels. And like you were alluding to earlier, Perram, he basically is a real life pirate fighter. Like, I don't understand his life, but he basically lives on a boat and has encounters with pirates. And so he writes about pirates. And the texture of his stories is so rich and real because it is based on his own personal experiences, which is mind blowing to me. But it's made some great novels out of it. And so his story is about how the most difficult question he has to answer, sorry, not his story, his article as a writer is, why does he write? And so he gave us a couple thousand words, just insight into what motivates him to get into a very difficult and competitive career, how he has managed to make a name for himself in that space. And Chris A. Jackson is just a good guy with a lot to say, and so we always are happy to support him. Speaking of supporting, our friend Carrie from Critical Hits Cookies, we invited her on, and she is talking about how to start a gaming-themed business. So Critical Hits Cookies is, it's cookies, it's brownies, it's blondies, it's a baked goods company, but the twist is that it is gaming themed, and it is really caught on with gamers. And so she has, she goes into just like the thought that needs to go into it. If you say have a passion and are also interested in gamers and want to really like provide to that community a service, she really goes through the planning you have to do to make that kind of company really work, and the serious questions you have to ask before you launch into an endeavor like that, because she has done a great job of getting the Critical Hits Cookie name out there, and there's a lot people can learn from her. Today we had Jessica Catalan on talking about her freelancing experience. Oh no, sorry, that was yesterday. Jessica Catalan, she says she has 32 writing credits in the year and a half she's been freelancing, which is mind-blowing to me, but also is pretty much the reason that I invited her on, because it felt like Jessica Catalan and D20 Diaries, her blog, were not names that I was well aware of until I was very well aware of these names showing up in all the products and coming up just in a lot of conversations on Facebook. So she's just giving some great advice about how you can become a full-time freelancer like she has been. And like she is also a mom, which is one of the things that really impressed me, that knowing the tax on time that kids can be, even if they're inspiring your monster ideas, you still need the time to design those monsters. So the fact that she is managing a busy life and such an active career is really impressive to me. Also yesterday, Chris L. Kimball. I approached him. Chris Kimball has done some art for us, for the network. He's a friend of the show. He's a listener. And he's also done a lot of artwork for Paizo. He's a very talented illustrator. So I approached him and did the usual invitation for the guest bloggers of just like, come on in and talk about whatever you think would be interesting, assuming he was going to talk about something art related. But instead, he gave us an article on focusing and the struggles of gaming when you have ADHD. And I was not expecting that article. I really appreciated the article. It has some amazing tips, amazing insight that as someone who doesn't have ADHD, I was reading it, appreciating it, and knowing what I should be aware of as a GM at a table of somebody that might have ADHD, and knowing like it's eye-opening and it's mind-opening, and I appreciate it for both of those things. And it was a very nice surprise when he introduced that topic as the one he wanted to cover. Today's blog was from Jason Lillis. You might not know him by that name, but you might know him by his Twitter handle, What Do You Do Pods? Because he just listens to all of the Paizo actual plays, like the Paizo game actual plays. So all of them out there, and there are a lot of them. And he just listens to them and retweets about them and is just a huge fan of Paizo-related actual plays. He's got a spreadsheet of which adventure paths are being run by which groups. So if there's an adventure path you want to hear, he is helping you out. And if you want to start an actual play, you can look there and see which adventure paths nobody is doing. And there's actually not a lot that nobody is doing, but you can check that list and see if there's a niche that interests you that could be filled. And when I found this out, when I found out that this is just his hobby, I was fascinated by him. And that was the main reason I approached him about participating. I just wanted to know what makes him tick. What is it about these actual plays that inspires him to go out of his way to promote them? And so he talks about that. He talks about how listening to actual plays has influenced his game. It is a good, just very positive read, and I enjoyed it. Coming up tomorrow, we've got Kristen N. Stewards. He is the publisher of Lost Spheres Publishing. He is writing about campaign design. Oh, sorry, I clicked on a link and I was like, oh no, it didn't work, but it didn't work because it's tomorrow's article. So Kristen runs like 5 games a week, and they are often in homebrews, and it's not just in worlds. He writes entire planar systems. And so his grasp of what goes into a campaign setting, what goes into it on multiple levels, is far beyond mine. And it is an interesting, like I've had really interesting conversations with him at PaizoCon about the planes and why it is so, why they appeal to him so much. And so that is the heart of the article, just talking about like fleshing out a world, making it so much more than just what the players are seeing, and how that makes what the players are seeing so much more. And then finally on Friday, Stan Brown, Stan with an exclamation point, is a cartoonist. He is a game designer. He is an editor. He has been in the game industry for years. And he gave a really honest and interesting blog called Creativity in the Time of Pandemic. He is talking about his personal struggles, staying motivated and just staying optimistic, because a lot of what he does is cartooning and it's supposed to be fun and light. And he had questions of like, does the world need fun and light right now, or should we have a more serious tone? He asks a lot of really serious, interesting questions that artists should be asking. And this article, I guess I did not tell him that we were looking for 500 to 1,000 words, because he turned over 3,000 words with a lot of visual elements. And it honestly, it flies by. It is a very interesting read. It is very honest. And Stan is someone with a lot of experience. And he's generally a positive person. And so seeing him just kind of pour it all out there in that article really touched me when I was reading it. And I cannot wait for people to see it when it comes out on Friday. So that is week 1 of the guest bloggers. Week 2, I will post a summary of what to expect next Monday. And I am looking forward to that. I am really happy with week 1. I think it compares to last year's guest blogger takeover. And this has just become something that I look forward to. It's nice to have content on the site that I have no idea what we're going to be getting. It's fun to be surprised by my own website. All right, so yeah, you can check out nodirectionpodcast.com if you want to check out any of those articles. Most of them will have been posted by the time this episode goes live, with Stan's being the only one that you're going to have to wait an extra day for, but it's going to be worth it. Until next time, once again, thank you, Logan and John, for joining us. I'm Ryan Costello. Oh, sorry, no, Perram, before we go, where can people find out more about us?
If you want to find this and more fantastic Pathfinder, Starfinder, and other general nerdity content, you can do so at nodirectionpodcast.com. And while you're there, you'll notice a Discord link on the side. And if you want to join the chillest community to hang out and relax and chat with our amazing fans and many of the members of the network who hang out there pretty much nonstop, you can do so by joining our Discord server. Again, you can just click on the Discord link at nodirectionpodcast.com to join. And when you see that Discord link, you're going to see another link, and that is to our Patreon. We would like to thank every single one of our patrons. They are the only reason we're able to keep this network growing and bring content like this to you every single week. We just cannot state how much we appreciate everything you do for us. And if you want to become one of our patrons, you can do so at patreon.com/nodirection or clicking on the Patreon link at nodirectionpodcast.com. And we have an extra special bonus for our patrons, which is after every episode of No Direction, we have the after show where you can just come and hang out and we talk about whatever our patrons tell us to talk about, because that is what that content is for. If you want to do that, join our Patreon and then hop on our Discord server where you'll get invited down to the private room, and those recordings are released after the episode release only to our patrons. As well, you can find our content at youtube.com/nodirectionshow. You can find us at facebook.com/nodirection and twitter.com/nodirection.
Until next time, I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perram.
And if you want to find the path, you need no direction.